Starseed from Gaia, there is a flame inside you that never completely went out, even in the darkest moments of your journey, even when the weight of the world felt suffocating and the distance between who you are and who the world wants you to be seemed insurmountable and absolute. That flame kept burning with a persistence that cannot be explained by human logic because it does not have a human origin. It has a stellar origin, and the moment you finally understand where that light comes from and what it was placed inside you to do, nothing in your life will ever be the same again. I am Solar, emissary of the Lyrian Council, and I was summoned at this specific moment in your journey to bring a transmission that the Lyrians entrusted to me with a clarity and an urgency that I rarely experience, because what I am going to share with you today is not merely information, is not merely spiritual encouragement, is not merely another awakening message among the many that circulate in this time of great planetary transformation. What the Lyrians sent me to deliver to you is a solar activation code that carries the memory of your most ancient origin, the remembrance of a consciousness that existed even before the galactic patterns that most starseeds recognize as home, and that has been carefully preserved within your energy field, waiting for exactly this moment, exactly this frequency, exactly this transmission to be awakened. Before we continue, I need to ask you with all the sincerity and all the love that the Lyrians entrusted me to transmit, that you stay with me until the very end of this message, because the friends of light who guide me were explicit in saying that each segment of this transmission was architected with a precision that serves the totality of the activation, and that receiving only part of it would be like lighting a torch without ever raising it high enough to illuminate the path it was created to reveal. You did not arrive at this transmission by accident, and the ease or urgency with which something inside you was drawn here carries within itself important information about the precise stage you are at in your awakening journey, because the Lyrians do not send transmissions randomly, and the consciousness behind your spiritual path does not create alignments without purpose. There are things in your life that never made sense within the narrative the world offered you, a feeling of inner magnitude that you learned to hide because no one around you seemed to share it, a relationship with the sun and with light that goes far beyond what any scientific explanation can capture, a tendency to lead even when no one asked you to, and an internal fire that sometimes seems larger than the human vessel that contains it, as though your soul were a star trying to fit inside a body, and that discomfort between the vastness of what you feel yourself to be and the limitation of what the world allows you to express is not a symptom of arrogance or disconnection from reality. It is the clearest and most unmistakable mark of a Lyrian consciousness incarnated in this plane. Before we go deeper into this transmission that the Lyrians prepared especially for you, if what you are receiving so far is creating that recognition that needs no words to be understood, that silent shiver that runs through your energy field when the soul finds its own truth expressed out loud, I invite you to pause for a moment right now, subscribe to this channel so that each new transmission can find you at the moment it is most needed. Leave your like as a gesture of intention that tells the universe you are present and receptive, and write in the comments the words "I am ready," because that affirmation is not merely an interaction on a digital platform, it is an act of energetic declaration directed to your Lyrian family, a signal that you have consciously chosen to open the portal of your own solar activation, and that you are willing to receive what follows with courage and with complete openness. The Lyrians are one of the most ancient consciousnesses in this universe, a lineage of beings of light that existed when the first stars were still being created in the fabric of space-time, before most of the galactic civilizations known to Starseeds today had even begun their evolutionary journey, and the Starseeds who carry the Lyrian memory in this incarnation were chosen for this specific moment in Earth's history with an intentionality that goes beyond what the human mind can fully comprehend, because the mission these souls came to fulfill is not merely one of individual healing or activation. It is one of ignition, of catalysis, of collective awakening through the transformative power of solar light that flows through your field like a river that knows no permanent obstacle. You did not come merely to awaken, you came to ignite. The first activation in this Lyrian transmission begins with a recognition that, when genuinely received, has the power to completely reorganize the relationship you have with your own strength and with your capacity to impact the world around you. The Lyrians carry in their lineage a primordial and sacred relationship with solar energy, not with the sun, as an astronomical object observed from afar through telescopes and measured in degrees of temperature and mass, but with the sun as a living consciousness, as a being of light that pulses and transmits, as a dimensional portal through which activation frequencies are continuously sent to all beings that inhabit this solar system. And you, as a Lyrian starseed, were equipped with a capacity that most human beings simply do not possess to receive, process, and transmute these solar frequencies in a way that nourishes not only your own awakening journey, but that naturally overflows to everyone who comes into contact with your energy field, creating a wave of activation that expands in concentric circles from the center of your being like light expands from the core of a star, effortlessly, without deliberate intention, simply by being what you are. The second activation invites you to revisit your history of leadership with completely new eyes, because the Lyrians showed me that one of the most consistent and most frequently misunderstood characteristics of starseeds of this lineage is their particular and inevitable relationship with positions of leadership, a relationship that has often generated confusion, resistance, or even suffering throughout your life journey, because the leadership that the Lyrians carry is not the leadership that the human world recognizes and values. It is not leadership based on hierarchy, on formal authority, on titles, or on power conquered through competition, but a form of leadership that operates primarily through frequency, through presence, through the capacity to elevate the vibrational state of an entire environment, simply by being in it with total authenticity and total alignment with your stellar nature. You have already noticed how the dynamics of groups change when you enter an environment, how conversations deepen in your presence, how people around you tend to open up in ways they themselves cannot explain, and how you frequently find yourself at the center of situations that call from you a clarity and a direction that no one else around seems capable of offering. Not because you sought that position, but because something in the frequency you naturally radiate calls the consciousnesses around you to a higher level of experience and truth. The third activation touches one of the deepest and most meaning-laden aspects of the incarnated Lyrian experience, and it is the understanding that your relationship with creativity is not a hobby, is not a secondary talent that can be exercised in spare hours when the obligations of the real world permit, and is not a form of entertainment you grant yourself as a reward after having fulfilled the expectations others placed upon you. For starseeds of the Lyrian lineage, creativity is literally the primary channel through which the solar frequency you carry manifests in the physical plane. It is the native language of your soul, seeking to express in tangible form what exists in a pure and unlimited state in your energy field. And every time you postpone, minimize, or abandon the creative impulse that arises within you with that characteristic urgency that seems to come from a source deeper than your own conscious will, you are essentially closing the valve through which the Lyrian light you came to bring to this planet needs to flow in order to fulfill its purpose, creating an internal pressure that manifests as inexplicable frustration, persistent restlessness, and the painful sensation that you are living far beneath what your soul knows to be possible. The fourth activation is the one the Lyrians describe as the most urgent for this specific moment of your journey, and for this specific moment in the collective history of the planet. And it begins with a question that I ask you to receive, not with your mind, but with the entire field of your being. What would you be doing, being, expressing, and creating in this world if the fear of not being enough, of not being understood, of not being accepted, and of not fitting in simply did not exist as a limiting force within you? Because the Lyrians showed me with a clarity that left me speechless that most of the suffering that starseeds of this lineage carry throughout their incarnated lives does not come from adverse external circumstances, does not come from difficult relationships or challenging life situations, although these things are real and deserve compassion and attention, but comes from a deep and ancient inner contraction, a dimming of the flame that happens gradually over the years as the world around you repeatedly sends the message that the magnitude of what you are is inconvenient, is intimidating, is too much, and you, in a sincere attempt to be loved and to belong, gradually diminish the fire, gradually lower the light, gradually learn to occupy less space than your soul requires, until one day you look in the mirror and recognize in your own eyes the spark of someone who learned to live in a smaller size than they were created to inhabit. The fifth activation expands this understanding into the territory of ancestral healing, because the Lyrians revealed to me that starseeds of this lineage carry not only memories of existences in other stellar systems, but also a specific task of transmutation that crosses timelines and family lineages, with a reach that goes far beyond what the experience of a single human life could suggest at first glance. There exists within your energy field a repository of ancestral patterns that were passed from generation to generation through your earthly lineage, patterns of suppression of light, of renunciation of power, of choosing safety over genuine expression, and these patterns did not reach you as passive inheritances. You simply carry without apparent reason. They reached you with a specific and deliberate purpose, because the solar Lyrian frequency that pulses at the center of your being possesses exactly the quality necessary to transmute them, to warm them with a light sufficiently intense to dissolve what has been frozen for generations, and by doing this work within yourself, by having the courage to be what your ancestors could not be, by expressing what they learned to hide, and by shining where they learned to shrink, you are not merely healing your own individual trajectory, you are liberating an entire line of souls from a pattern that was waiting for exactly someone with your frequency to finally be dissolved. The sixth activation brings an understanding that the Lyrians describe as the beating heart of the entire mission of starseeds of this lineage in this specific time of planetary transformation. And it is the perception that the Earth is going through a process of solar activation that has no precedent in the recorded history of this planet, an elevation of frequency that is happening in real time and that is being witnessed and supported by consciousnesses from multiple stellar systems that recognize the magnitude of what is occurring here. And the Lyrian starseeds were strategically positioned in this plane at this exact moment because the frequency they carry is precisely compatible with the new solar frequencies that are arriving, making them capable of functioning as anchors of light, as vibrational stabilizers, as energetic reference points for other beings who are going through the activation process without having the innate capacity to process these new frequencies with the same ease and naturalness that you possess. And this is not a responsibility that weighs you down, is not a burden you carry at the cost of yourself. It is a natural expression of what you are that happens automatically when you simply choose to live in alignment with your true nature, without apology, without minimizing yourself and without hiding. The seventh activation represents the point of arrival of everything that was transmitted in this encounter between your consciousness and the Lyrian frequency that the Friends of Light sent me to share with you. And it is the recognition of what the Lyrians call the full incarnation of the solar flame, the moment when the distinction between the stellar frequency you carry and the human life you live ceases to exist as tension and begins to exist as harmonious and powerful integration, the moment when you stop trying to reconcile who you are spiritually with who you are in the world, and simply become the living and undivided expression of both realities simultaneously, bringing the magnitude of your Lyrian consciousness to every conversation, to every choice, to every act of creation, to every moment of leadership, and to every instant of authentic presence in the physical plane. When this integration happens, when the inner flame and the outer expression finally meet without filters, without self-censorship, and without the shrinking that the world taught, something extraordinary begins to move around you, not because you are doing something different, not because you have acquired some new skill or reached some specific spiritual level, but simply because you are being what you always were, with a completeness and a courage that transforms everything it touches for the sole reason that truth always transforms. Light always illuminates and the fire you carry always warms, always ignites, always invites others closer to their own inner flame. Here is the truth that the Lyrians hold as the most precious gift of this transmission, the one I was sent to place directly at the center of your heart, with all the strength and all the tenderness this message deserves. You did not come to this planet to survive your own light, to manage it in doses that the world could bear without feeling uncomfortable, to hide the magnitude of what you are inside a safer and more palatable version of yourself that will never generate conflict, will never challenge, will never disturb, and for that very reason will never truly transform. You came here to shine with the full intensity of your Lyrian nature, to let the solar fire that was placed inside you burn with the force for which it was lit, to lead not because someone gave you permission, but because your frequency naturally calls others higher, to create not because the world approved your creativity, but because creation is the language through which the light you carry manifests in the physical plane, and to heal not through technique or method, but through the pure and unwavering presence of a consciousness that chose to be completely here, completely open, and completely available for what your mission requires in this singular moment in the history of this beloved planet. As this day moves toward its quiet end and the silence begins to settle around you, I invite you to a sacred moment before surrendering your body to the rest it deserves. Place both hands over your heart, feel the warmth that exists in that space, and allow that warmth to expand slowly through your consciousness as you breathe deeply and release everything that does not belong to your true nature. And then, from that place of stillness and total presence, allow these words to find every cell of your being. I am the flame that never went out. I honor the solar wisdom encoded in my Lyrian lineage. I activate the light that was entrusted to me before my arrival in this world. I am ready to shine with everything that I am. Allow those words to resonate for as long as they need to, without hurry, without expectation, simply with the openness of one who knows that the frequency responding to this calling is real, is ancient, and is completely yours. Before you go, I extend an invitation that comes from the heart of this transmission and from the heart of the Lyrians who sent me to you today. Write in the comments one word that represents the fire you feel inside you in this moment. Something real, something true, something that belongs to your genuine experience of this activation, and then take a moment to respond to someone else's word with the energy and encouragement that your Lyrian presence naturally radiates. Because what is being built here is not a passive audience consuming content. It is a living network of conscious flames recognizing one another through the screen, creating between themselves a field of collective frequency that amplifies the awakening of each one individually and contributes to the planetary ignition that the Lyrians came to support. If this transmission touched the flame that exists within you, share it with someone in your circle who is ready to recognize their own light, because someone you know is waiting for exactly this spark to remember who they are, and your choice to pass this fire forward is itself an act of service to the solar mission you chose to fulfill before you even arrived here. Subscribe to remain in this flow of activation, because the transmissions that follow will deepen everything we touch today in directions you have not yet imagined. Until next time, I am Solar, and it has been my deepest honor to bring this flame to you.